I can't sleep. I'm thinking about Elden Ring. It would be really annoying not being able to sleep and all, but I really like thinking about Elden Ring. So, come, think with me. Who needs sleep anyway? We need to talk spoilers. More precisely, I've been thinking about three aspects of the game in particular. First aspect, the lore. Yeah, no surprise, as in all FromSoft games, the lore is interesting, fragmented, and in places intentionally incomplete. Where did the Great Runes come from? Who was the Dusk-Eyed Queen? Why did Marika order Malikev to seal away the Rune of Death? How did they make a jar so big? Why did Radagon try to fix the Elden Ring if Marika was the one who shattered the Elden Ring? Where was Hora Low the entire game? Why is crab meat so delicious? And as is unfortunately often the case, the translation is lacking at times. As in, the best ending stops being complete gibberish once translated properly. I'll link what's that about below. But even if I spent 170 hours on a single playthrough, reading all the item descriptions, and have a pretty good understanding of what the hell is going on, I'm not here to do Vati's job for him. He's better at it, and I ain't gonna mess with that. The second aspect is gameplay. Even though I've never used magic in any Soulsborne games, I've actually started Elden Ring as astrologer because reasons, and I fell down the scrap hole of easy magic life. Seriously, I've used to scoff at any ranged build, but it's really fun deleting things from afar with overwhelming firepower. I didn't watch any guides, but still stumbled into the second most meta build at the time, after finding the Sword of Night and Flame. I didn't even think it would be that OP, I just liked the idea of marrying faith and sorcery that Radagon had. And it was OP. Even after nerfs, it still is. Apart from that, I used the build I like to call whatever the fuck worked at the time, and it got me through the game. After finishing, however, I started thinking about other fun shit I could do. Like putting on Fia's dress, throwing Bloodhound Step and Bloodflame on a gravesite, and cosplaying Testman in PvP. Was it effective? No, fuck no. First meta build I met, I got annihilated. But it was fun. However, PvP meta and creating overpowered builds on purpose is also not my cup of tea, so I leave that to the people who know what they are doing. So what's the third aspect of the game? The one I actually want to talk about. Asset reuse. Yeah, I know you knew it's in the title. The amount of things from previous games that Elden Ring reuses, and the ways it does so, takes up almost as much of my brain space as the lore. Why? Because I'm genuinely impressed with what they accomplished. And no, this isn't a setup, this doesn't all lead to me saying asset reuse bad after pretending to like it. I am genuinely impressed with how Elden Ring recycles Dark Souls, Bloodborne and Sekiro. Especially in one particular area, which will be the main focus of this video. So where should I start? Making video games is hard. And I'm talking about making actual games, not some mobile asset flips made for $50 by a small outsourced company in whatever the fuckistan. Making video games as a single dev is hard because you need to do everything yourself. You need to be a fucking Da Vinci of the 21st century. Making video games as a company is hard because you need to juggle so many aspects of the process done by so many people of varying skills. Let's focus on that second one, the big company. I've never personally worked on a video game, but I happen to have experience in design and I can extrapolate a lot of my work into how a company like FromSoft would operate. So, 1. Everything depends on everything. You've probably heard somewhere that making video games is a collaborative process, but it doesn't really sink in until you work in that environment yourself. I bet most people imagine the process of creating video games as a straight line. The writer writes the script, then the team prepares the assets, they animate everything, they introduce the necessary mechanics, the voices are recorded, and then it's all put together with a nice little bow on top. And all along, everything is made according to that original script, maybe with minor adjustments. Yeah, no. It's more like all those things are happening at the same time. Remember, all those people are hired and paid, hopefully, full time. The animators can't wait for the 3D artists to finish all the assets before they start animating, they need to have some work to do. The 3D artists can't wait for the script to be 100% complete before they start creating assets, because they also need some work to do. And if they are still waiting for the work, then what the fuck is the animation team supposed to be doing? Unless they're the same people, but that's unlikely. And what of the writing team? Do they finish the script and get fired? Because we're not going to pay them to sit around and wait for the project to be done so they can start the next one. And that's just the workflow we are talking here. There are so many problems that can pop up during the project that may require people to redo their work. I'll give you an example. It will be an overblown, hyperbolic example, but I think it should get my point across. Imagine a scriptwriter for this new fantasy RPG. They have a pretty much clean slate to work with, apart from the requirement that the game is going to be melee combat heavy, so it would be nice if that was reflected in the story. Okay, how about creating a story that revolves around a legendary weapon? Yeah, not bad for a start. A sword? Nah, everybody uses swords, they're so plebeian. A spear? Yeah, nothing like a good legendary spear. So they write the script about how the spear was used to kill and/or seal some great evil a long time ago. And the hero who'd done that later established a country, and the spear is considered a holy relic as it's supposed to be an avatar of the war goddess. And now it was stolen, and the big bad guy goes around with the spear stirring shit up, and the player has to stop them. And at the end, once the player obtains the spear, they can use it to fight the real big bad in the final confrontation, the great evil that was killed and/or sealed by the previous hero. They sneak in some references to the Spear of Destiny and an Easter egg about Lancer stabbing himself. Overall, not a very original script, but pretty well written. The game director is very pleased with one little issue. The player can spec into various weapons, so forcing them to use a spear for the final boss is a tough sell. No problem. Let's just say that the weapon can actually take any form when wielded by someone it acknowledges as its master. That way we can keep all the other aspects and don't have to throw away the memes, but the player can keep their playstyle. Great, done. The artists get to drawing and modeling full speed, the writer starts working on finer aspects of the script, like individual dialogues, and it's going smoothly. Until mid-project it turns out that for whatever reason we cannot animate a spear. Any polearm, actually. Be it NPCs or player character, anytime we try to animate a stab with a polearm, the game engine just implodes. Swords? No problem, stab all day. But a spear or a halberd makes the game crash 100% of the time. Every software engineer is trying to solve this, but they have no idea what the fuck happened. Probably something with weapon length. But they're not sure. We could make a moveset where they only swing the spear around, but if you can't stab with it, then why even put a spear in the game? So now we can either spend an untold amount of additional time trying to solve this issue and possibly fail completely, or cut the polearms from the game. From the director's perspective, there's actually only one choice: scrap the spear. Maybe leave a halberd that can only do swings, but no stabbing. The spear has to go. But that means the script has to be rewritten in the middle of the project. There were some dramatic scenes that relied on the big bad using the legendary spear. It needs to stab fools. Not to mention the assets for the big cathedral are all done, with spear iconography everywhere, and the memes. The memes. Well, fuck. But wait, there's more! Half of the dialogue has already been recorded. And they are talking about the spear a lot. Like, a lot. The whole story revolves around it after all. Do we re-record the dialogues after the script is rewritten? Do you think we have the money to re-record the dialogues? Well, Double fuck! Now, you may think that this example is over the top, and it is. But similar issues are constant in game dev, I promise you. It's not a process where you can go from A to B to C, because not only doing B and C simultaneously is more efficient, it often turns out that when you get to D, it fucks up everything in A. So it would be best if we could also start D early, just to be safe. All of that within a limited time, because we set the release date before those issues popped up, and pushing it back isn't really an option. And that brings me back to Elden Ring and the asset reuse, and why I find it impressive. First of all, skillful asset reuse is good. Some people think reusing things from previous projects is just lazy in general, but these people are morons. It lets you save time that we don't have, and allows you to rely on solutions that you already know are working, instead of making something new only to discover that it doesn't. If you can get away with taking that castle that you built for the previous game and putting it in the new one after brushing it up a bit, fucking do it. If you already have a full skeleton with a set of 4 sword swinging animations, no need to make it from scratch for the new game. You've made it once, why waste time making a similar one instead of using the old one again? That being said, asset reuse can be just a result of laziness. That's why I said skillful reuse. If the wooden barrels in Fantasy Overblown Escapade 4 look exactly the same as ones in Medieval Vampire Simulator 2015, no one will bat an eye. If the god of Ragnarok fights the players in the exact same room as Volens the Mighty, Dracula, Defense Drone number 446 and the Caterpillar Man, then we may have a problem. In Elden Ring, not all reuse is skillful. I have no doubt that most of the architecture got lifted from DS3 and Bloodborne, but I couldn't notice. A wall is a wall. Putting big petrified versions of messengers in the Eternal City was funny. Earth Tree Guardian being another reskin of Asylum Demon was... meh. Again. But what really impressed me were the spells. Yes, spells. Many sorceries and incantations are taken straight from Dark Souls 3. The effects got a little time in the beautification machine to be more flashy and show-offy, and the animations stayed the same in many cases. And that's smart, animating shit is hard. The problem is that those spells were originally envisioned as a very integral part of the Dark Souls lore, and Bloodborne as well. Lightning is the power that comes from Gwyn and the gods of Anor. Sorceries and crystal sorceries were discovered by Sif the Scaleless during his search for immortality. Pyromancy comes from the Witch of Izalith and the primordial flame of chaos. The Black Flames came about when fire was corrupted by the dark soul of humanity. Beasthood and the power of blood were derived from the bodies of great ones. And Frenzy comes from trying to understand their minds and can honestly go fuck itself. So, how do we fit all of those into a new setting without any of that context? There already is some groundwork made by Martin in the world-building department, and even if there wasn't, we can't just copy-paste the lore from the other games. The lazy way is simple. Omit the context. Don't talk about it. There's fire magic and arcane magic and holy magic, and it all just kinda works and is similar to other games because shut up! That solution would require no amount of work from the writing team, a reasonable amount of work from the artists, and would also make the Souls community rain literal hellfire down on Elden Ring. So no, that wasn't really an option. Another way is to throw out all the magic we have and make new one from scratch, with new lore and everything. If we're already planning to make new assets anyway, and not just reuse old ones everywhere, then why not make some more? Well, that would make writers' work easier and also put an insane additional workload on the rest of the team, so that's not good either. I guess we have to bullshit it all together then. And they did. They did so impressively well. Sorcery and incantations are as integral to the lore of Elden Ring as sorcery, miracles and pyromancy were to Dark Souls. Names were remixed, things were added here and there, but a great number of spells in the game got recycled directly from the old titles with new context to fit it into the new world. How? I'm gonna talk about that a bit now. First, miracles and most of pyromancy were thrown into a single bag under the name of incantations, a move that baffled me at first, but I understood shortly. The distinction between pyromancy and the other two groups of magic in Dark Souls was very clear from the lore perspective, but not so when it comes to mechanics. It was a kinda weird in-between, requiring both intelligence and faith to cast. On one hand, it was a very versatile branch of magic owing to its hybrid nature. On the other, while that was something unheard of lore-wise, being a pure pyromancer seemed like a waste. Sure, pyromancy gets you most of the tools you need, but if you have to invest in faith and intelligence anyway, why not get some miracles and sorceries while you're at it? Why stop at fire and not go full avatar mode with all the elements? You are unlikely to get higher tier shit from either side, but being a high level pyromancer means you should be able to handle mid-tier sorcery and miracles no problem. And if that's the case, maybe it's better to specialize in one of those from the get-go and use pyromancy to fill the gaps. What's more, some pyromancies required only one stat to cast, either intelligence or faith, meaning that, if they so desired, a sorcerer in Dark Souls 3 could use Iron Flesh without investing a single point in faith. So in the long term, it might make more sense to use pyromancy as an auxiliary branch, an addition to the sorcery and miracles. In lore, however, pyromancy had a very distinct position originating from the Flame of Chaos and the demons, putting it in stark contrast to god-given miracles and sorceries of the Dragon School. But that context is gone now, so what do we do? For one, pyromancy was split similar to how it would turn out to be used in practice. Most spells were thrown into incantations with the old and new miracles, while a few are now considered sorceries. And from there, we start building the new lore. Basic incantations are the gift from the Earth Tree, the new good god of the setting, very similar in many ways to Gwyn. That covers the healing and golden miracles, which are mostly copy-pasted from Dark Souls. Next, lightning. Gwyn doesn't exist, but that doesn't mean this power can't come from somewhere else. As a nice nod to the Dark Souls lore, lightning is wielded by the dragons this time around, and they can teach others how to use it. Well, teach is not exactly correct in our case, but canonically there were people who learned this power from dragons in a peaceful way. From there, the road is open for everything else. Fire, god of the fire giants. Black fire, oh, that's for killing gods, that's shit special. Poison, Malenia, the goddess of rot. Okay, she's more like a messiah of rot and poison, not its source of power. Put it like that, and it all sounds easy. But then, look at the world as a whole, and try to see the process behind its creation. Imagine you are on the writing team and all you have is whatever Martin gave you and a bunch of magic that all comes from very specific sources in the old lore, and now you have to put it all together and make it make sense. It's not enough to say that the fire magic comes from the fire giants. Who are those giants? Where are they now? What were they doing before? How do they fit into the world? Someone, at some point, will come and ask these questions because that's how the Souls community operates. We've learned to expect those answers to exist, hidden somewhere in the game world. And if you don't have at least some of them ready for us to find, we will be disappointed, and may not buy the next game. Questions like that will arise for any significant aspect of the lore. The players expect that sources of magic will be significant within the world, either gods or primordial forces or something of that nature, because that's what we're used to. That's what we're trained to expect. And so, building the world of Elden Ring was not only a creative process where the writing team had to come up with the new lore, new people and new places, it was a puzzle. A giant interconnected puzzle made out of old pieces that had to make new shapes, but whose shapes in turn couldn't be altered too much. Every spell needed new explanation while retaining its function. Every new explanation had to fit with all the other new explanations and every other facet of the world. And just as a little bonus, it wouldn't be bad if those new explanations were interesting and made the lore more intriguing. Just, in case fitting all this shit together wasn't hard enough. And they did make it so. That's why I said I'm impressed. That's why I called it a skillful reuse of assets. Granted, it's not only reuse, they made a ton of new things and altered some old ones to fit the setting. Add little skulls on pursuers, and dark sorcery suddenly becomes death sorcery. But a vast amount of magic remained functionally unaltered with only slight visual changes, and somehow made to fit this new world design. Sorceries of Seth, powered by souls, became sorceries of the stars, derived from the distant lights in the dark beyond. Which coincidentally may also be the source of all the earth incantations as well, considering the shit Elden Beast pulls off, but that's a different conversation. For mortals to use this distant power, they need the catalyst in the form of crystals that reflect this light. And make the jump to crystal sorceries really easy. Just saying. Flame now comes from the giants who waged war against the Earth Tree, and is considered heresy because wood burns real good, but the church can't really stop you from using it, can they? The Black Flame was imbued with the Rune of Death, not the Dark Soul, and used to hold the power of slaying gods before it was sealed by Malekith. On the other hand, sorcery that takes the form of raging fire came from Rykard, who waged his own rebellion against the Earth Tree, but lacked access to the Flame of Ruin, guarded by Earth Tree loyalists after the war. In his research, he sought the power slumbering in the volcano, and found his own way to channel its fire against his enemy. Lightning was the weapon of dragons, but after their defeat and submission, became a weapon of Earth Tree as well. And Death, unbound after its rune was stolen, took over some of the old dark sorceries. A primal force of the world, more akin to the stars than the gods, and so can be channeled the same way. Yeah, that last one may be a stretch. What I'm trying to say is that FromSoft managed to take a truckload of things they've shown us before and make it feel new. The first time I looked at sorcery in Elden Ring, all I could see was the same blue shit I've seen at least 3 times before. Because, in truth, I did see it at least 3 times before. Soul Arrow is Soul Arrow, let's not kid ourselves. After going through the game, however, I no longer feel that way. Everything has new context, new reason to exist within the world, making it feel new even if it isn't. And all those new, not new things feel connected to each other as they should be in a functioning world. Even if those connections sometimes give you more questions than answers. It's still a From Software game after all. Yeah, I feel better now. I guess I needed somewhere to vent my thoughts. I think I'll be able to sleep now. I'm gonna go do that. And so, I bid you good night. But how the fuck was Elden Beast using Nebula?